right? You walk, you get food in a restaurant, and you look at it, wow, that looks really good. You know, so that's how you do with wine. You're going to eat or drink with your eyes first, and you're going to smell the aroma or the bouquet. Now, some of my favorite descriptions. When I lived in Palm Springs, I had a grapefruit tree, and our gardener was there cutting the grass, and he ran over a grapefruit. The smell of cut grass and grapefruit. That's a Sauvignon Blanc. A really good Sauvignon Blanc, and then you can get into some Pinot Noirs, and you swirl that around. Oh, you get forest floor. You get like all kinds, and different types of fruits, and blackberry, or maybe cherry, depending on the wine. And so each wine has a really unique, and then Chardonnay. All wines naturally go through a process called malolactic fermentation. All red wines naturally go through this. With Chardonnay, it's a second fermentation process. Now, malolactic, lactic acid, just like in milk, that's what gives Chardonnay its buttery flavor and texture and depth. So, a good Chardonnay, you can have the Chardonnay. Chardonnay is one of the most versatile grapes because it can be steel barrel fermented, or it can be oak barrel fermented, and it takes on the toast of the oak barrel, and then it goes through that second fermentation process called malolactic fermentation, and you have that buttery Chardonnay that is just, sometimes you just want to take a butter knife and slather it on your tongue, So that's part of it. And then we get into balance. Now, tannic acid comes from the skins on the grape. So, say the grape skins might have been left in a little bit, the wine maker left them in a little bit too long. That's when you're going to get something very dry. It's going to be very, very dry, that tannic feeling. And then acidity, also, you can also get wine that does not have a good balance in terms of acidity to complement the rest of the flavors. Alcohol content. That's also very important. Anybody want to guess what typically the highest alcohol content varietal wine is? Anybody? Well, it can be 18. If it gets much over 18, then it's got to be called brandy. And the ones that do that, Zinfandel. Zinfandel is usually a big red wine is going to be, because that's the only time. If you try to get a lighter, or wine like a Pinot Noir grape or a white grape with that high in alcohol, you're just going to go, no, this is not good. So, and then fruit. The grape can take on so many different characteristics. Is it cranberry? Is it, does it have citrus? Does it have, a plum or blackberry or blueberry? All of those things can be part of that flavor of that fruit. And then depth and finish too. And when you taste food and wine, you're using you're using the whole part of your mouth. So the roof of your mouth, the bottom, the edges of your tongue, the back of your tongue, the back of your throat, all of this is all part of how you taste. We don't have time to get into wine tasting at this point, but that part, the finish, is that flavor that you're left with after you swallow that mouthful of wine. And you've swished it around your mouth, and a lot of times what people will do is they'll pull air over it, like this almost, and pull the air into their mouth, and then we'll show you a toy that can do that for you, a wine toys, an aerator. But you can also do that yourself. So when you swallow, does that leave a nice taste in your mouth? Is it something memorable, or, and that's what you're looking for in terms of how do you tell a good wine. All right? Now, also, it helps to have a good wine in a nice setting. This is Zia Lina, which is Italian for Aunt Lena. And this was my tasting table last month in Sonoma County. And we're looking out, we're trying a beautiful, nice Zinfandel, and we're looking out at these are the vineyards where the grapes were grown. And you'll notice Other than flowers on the table, we've got the bottle of wine, so you can read the label. We've got some breadsticks there, so when we do our tasting in the back of the room, we've got some crackers if you need to cleanse your palate. And we've also got some water back there too. People want to have some water, so you'll see that on the table as well. So, you know, how could you not sit at a table like that and enjoy yourself, huh? Yes. Yeah, there have been, why the question was, haven't they had fires in Sonoma County? Yeah, but one of the things I will say is that the fires 2 years ago burned right through the city of Santa Rosa. They didn't really hit the vineyards. About 2 months ago, they had another fire, the Kincaid fire, that did burn through. It actually, unfortunately, burned through, I can show you some pictures later, Soda Rock Winery had buildings over there from the mid-1800s that were just burned to the ground, unfortunately. But they're already rebounding, and they're tasting in their 100-year-old barn where the slats between, the space between the boards, which we couldn't do this time of year in Michigan, is equal to the width of the board, so it's really barely a structure. But they're out there, we went there and we tasted to show our support. And yes, the fires have been a big challenge, and climate change is a big challenge for wine regions around the world. For sure. Okay, number 7. Do not be a wine snob. Don't be a wine snob. Don't, you know, and you know, it comes back to that whole idea that don't try to tell somebody what they should like. You know, it's just, it's not, this is something that for a while, I think people did because they didn't understand wine, and they were intimidated by a snooty waiter or a sommelier. But, you know, don't be a wine snob. You know, there's, and I guess the other thing I would bring up is there's some very tasty wines that have not yet attained a bevy of prestigious awards. So be open to that. Okay, has anybody heard of the #1 most expensive bottle of wine right now in the world? It's from a winery in Napa. A young woman, well, she was a young woman when she started it, has had great success, and it's called Screaming Eagle. You heard of Screaming Eagle? Well, we're going to talk about the fact that all the Screaming Eagles started as common chirping sparrows at one point or another. And we're going to prove this today when we go tasting some wine. And out of on a 5-point scale, an average or good bottle of wine in the U.S. costs about $14.41, and that's for 750 milliliter bottle. And that is what we're going to be trying today. We actually, when Fred and I went to Myers yesterday, so this is something you can do yourself. We bought wine that was between $14 and $16 and $50 per bottle. And we have 2 Cabernets. We have a Kenwood Chardonnay. And I told Fred, I said, do you think Ken would drink this? Yes, Ken would. And we have a beautiful Clos de Bois Rosé. So all of these fall into this good price range, right? But guess what? We got them on sale for $9.99 a bottle, and then we bought more than 4, so we got another 10% off. So this fabulous wine you're going to try costs $8.99 a bottle. Such a deal. I mean, and you can find these deals. Now, if I was going to the Kenwood Winery in Kenwood, California, I can't get a Chardonnay there for under $22. But I can move to Michigan and get it for $8.99. How about that? That's another good reason why Michigan's better than California. So a very good bottle of wine, which would have a 4.0 rating, has an average price of about $25 a bottle. So once again, you can get a good bottle of wine under $10. And, you know, so people should be realizing this, enjoying it, shopping, trying, comparing, and enjoying. Now, this is the most expensive bottle of wine in the world right now. And this 1992 Screaming Eagle Cabernet Sauvignon, literally, if you have a bottle of that, you can sell it for $500,000. Crazy, huh? when you think about it. Now, if I'm going to be spending that much, I want a bigger bottle, don't you? Okay. This is what doctors recommend. A glass of wine a day. And he's got a pretty good sized glass there, doesn't he? Well, let's talk about larger bottle formats, because that looks like it's about probably at least 2 bottles of regular bottles of wine. Now, as we get into the larger, oops, there we go, back that up. There we go. So, your standard bottle that I just showed you like this that we have back there that you would get is 750 milliliters. The next size up is called a Magnum. And this is a Magnum. And it's already empty, people. Sorry, I already drank it. It's a beautiful 98 Chateau Souverain Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is equivalent to 2 bottles of wine. And I used to joke at one point in time, the only place with more Magnums than my wine cellar was the Dodge dealership, but they don't make that car anymore, so I can't say that. And then the next you have is a double Magnum, which is equal to 4 standard bottles, which is quite a lot when you think about trying to pour that heavy bottle. But look at as you go on up. A Jeroboam, which is 6 bottles. And even with this empty, it's heavy to lift. I did not drink this all by myself, but Mara Torres, who owns the winery, poured this at her paella party, and she let me take home the empty bottles, because I think it's fun. And as you go on, you've got everything, the Methuselah, which is 8 bottles, and if it's an imperial, that means it's champagne or sparkling wine, but it's still equivalent to 8 bottles. And as you go on down, the Balthazar's to 16 bottles. Can you imagine trying to hold that? Well, and then the big granddaddy of all is a Solomon. And that's 24 standard bottles, or 2 cases of wine. So that really takes, several people to lift it up and try to pour it. Now, the most common is the Magnum. You will see the Magnum in the stores. And the reason some people are really go after the larger format bottles is because the wine actually does taste better as it ages in cellars, because it's got more surface area, and it really is great. So I would encourage a Magnum or a double Magnum. I have a couple. The largest I have is the Jeroboam. I've got a couple of those, and I don't know how I never get enough people over to my house to. Okay. Yeah. Okay, John, that was great. Thank you. Okay, I just had to throw this in. It's one of my favorites. I'd love to take you out for coffee this week. You spelled wine wrong. So, number 8, experiment with new varietals. Don't be afraid to try something. If you've got something that you like, some of us go to the same restaurant, we order the same thing because that's what we like. But try new things and try some new varietals. And I'll give you an example of a local new varietal you can try, and then I'll tell you a little bit about one that I discovered when I was in South Africa wine tasting. And in South Africa, they have a unique wine called Pinotage. And it is a direct result. I talked to you earlier about that fickle Pinot Noir grape with the thin skin. And so it was in the 1920s and in South Africa. They were trying to grow Pinot Noir. And they planted it, and it was too hot. And it would literally turn to raisins before they could, even remotely crush it and to make it into wine. So what happened was a botanist in 1927 thought, I'm going to take Cisault, Cisault, that variety, which has a very thick tannic skin, and I'm going to graft it with Pinot Noir and see how it does in South Africa. And it did phenomenally. So Pinotage is a really wonderful wine. There are 2 wineries that make it here, one in Mendocino County, and another one, there are 2 in Sonoma County, Jay, if you know Jay. They have about a couple acres of Pinotage growing right out behind the tasting room. And then Fort Ross, which is one of my favorites because they are owned by a couple that immigrated from South Africa. But it's a wonderful wine, and it kind of tastes like a Pinot Noir Zinfandel to me. I mean, each of you may have a different, but it's a nice, big, wonderful red wine, and it's a different one to try. Another one here locally that is great is Traminette. Has anyone had Traminette? Yeah, you see it again in the back, yeah. Traminette is it's part of the Gewürztraminer family, because we have a lot of grapes that grow well in Europe and Germany here because of the similar weather. And a Traminette can be, if you go to Finn Valley Winery, which is, when we talk about AVAs, American Viticulture Areas, Finn Valley was the first AVA in Michigan. I don't know if you knew that, the first one. I think it was 1972. They have a dry Traminette and a regular Traminette. And the Traminette grape's a little bit sweeter, so it goes really well with like spicy Asian food or Hispanic or Mexican food too, because it's just a lovely complement to that. So that's one that you can try. But don't be afraid to try a new type of varietal that you might not have tried before, because it might be something you really like and enjoy. Now, here's another, this is number 9 of the top 10 wine things. Okay? Never, ever, ever cook with a wine that you wouldn't want to drink. How many of us have had someone say, whether it's a food and you're eating something and you say, oh, this doesn't taste very good. Here, try it. Would you try it? No. I mean, why would you do that? And why would you put wine in food that you do not want to enjoy and drink yourself? Another one of my favorite stories, a little winery called Yoga Ridge, which is in Dry Creek Valley in Sonoma County, and it's David and Virginia run the winery, and Virginia runs the tasting room. David is the winemaker, and they're just a delightful couple, and they just only do big reds. They do Zinfandel, and Petit Syrah, and Cabernet Sauvignon, and you go in there, and the reason people go is because of Virginia's barbecued meatballs. And every day, at the end of the day in the tasting room, Virginia takes all the open bottles of wine and she makes her barbecue sauce with this fabulous wine. So you're actually tasting these little meatballs. Now, Virginia will confess, she goes, I told her, Virginia, stop telling people you get the meatballs from Costco, because the sauce is so good. And she's like, well, yeah, I shouldn't do that. Well, and then one other quick story about Virginia. She had gone, we had a local market in Healdsburg, and she went shopping, and she's a pretty forceful, independent woman, and she grabbed her shopping cart, and this man comes up and said, man, that's my shopping cart. And she thought he looked vaguely familiar, but then she didn't really know. She started arguing with him, because they had almost the same things in their carts. Well, he finally convinced her that this was his cart, not hers. And so she walked away, realizing she had just tried to steal Robert Redford's shopping cart. Yes. So anyway, and the other thing too that wineries do really, really well all around the world is they will do wine and food pairings, and they'll have recipes that they'll suggest that you can use and pair. And how wonderful to pair, a wine from a specific winery with a recipe that uses that wine in the food. Or, once again, we don't have enough time today to get into tasting, and many of the wine bottles we buy, in fact, some of the ones we bought yesterday will tell you on the back what this goes well with if you're not sure. But anyway, there's still people that will drink red wine with fish or vegetables, and that type of thing. And once again, if that's what you like, stick with it. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Now, here's another one of my dear friends. Maybe most of you will remember Fred MacMurray, the actor. This is his daughter, Kate. And any of you had MacMurray Ranch wines? No? Well, they have some wonderful wines, and Kate and I are enjoying one of their Pinot Noirs at their estate. And when Fred MacMurray bought the estate, it was a cattle ranch, and then he converted it over to a winery and winemaking and grapes. And so this is just another fun way that you can enjoy wine country And he's another man that started with a big fortune to make a small fortune in the wine business. Okay, there we go. Number 10. We're coming into the home stretch, folks. These are ideas what you can do at your next party to do something fun and something different. And we have the suggestion of doing a horizontal tasting, a vertical tasting, a blind tasting, or if you're really ready to go for it, a double blind tasting. So you're probably thinking, what are those? Right? Okay, a horizontal tasting is when you would take the same vintage, which is the year the wine was bottled, and the same varietal. So it would be like a 19 or 2016 Chardonnay, but from different wineries. So maybe you're comparing two different wineries together and tasting them against each other, saying how you like them. And you can do this with a group of people. Now, one of my favorites to do is a vertical tasting. And a vertical tasting is the same wine varietal, so the same grape, from the same vineyard, and the same vintner, but different years. So instead, you might have a Yoakum Bridge, as I just mentioned and told you the story about Virginia and David, a Yoakum Bridge Petite Syrah from 2012 and 2013 and 2014. And what you will taste is you'll taste Mother Nature and how the different weather and the rainfall, the amount of sun, all kinds of things impacted that because, one thing, as everybody in this room's probably had Kendall Jackson wine at one time or another. Jess Jackson, the way that he made his wine, his Chardonnay, so popular is he figured out how to make it taste the same every year, which is really not what most visitors do. But when you're marketing wine and you want to go back to that Kendall Jackson Chardonnay year after year after year after year, it tastes the same thing, then that's what Jess Jackson did a great job of. But if you really want to try something different and really get an idea, this is a really fun thing to do. Now, how many of you heard about the Great Paris Tasting? Great Paris Tasting, yes, I see a couple hands up. So, in 1976, there was a movie called Bottle Shock. Did anyone see the movie Bottle Shock? Well, I'm in it, in the background, in a couple different scenes, and because we had to get all the people together, it was filmed, majority of the film, 90% of the film was filmed in Sonoma County. And it tells a story about how the California vintners went to Paris and they did a blind tasting against the Parisian wines. Now, once again, I think part of the reason why we have wine snobs and this other thing is because, some French winemakers can be pretty uppity. Well, they totally lost, and they were judges. And so to do a blind tasting, what you're doing is you have the same varietal from different vineyards and regions. So the Great Paris Tasting was California wines, so it was a California Chardonnay against a French Chardonnay, and they had, Stag's Leap also was, the big winner for Chardonnay was, oh gosh, it just was in my mind, it just left. Anyway, I'll come back to it. It's a Napa winery, but the grapes all came from Sonoma. And Stag's Leap was a big winner also for the Cabernet. And so that's a fun thing to do if you have a party with a group of people and put paper bags on. We did an actual, I did an international wine competition and I was a judge for 14 years. And you're tasting some of these wines and I mean, there's some regions in the world that should never be making wine. England is one of them, and I'll never forget, going back to how you tell a good wine. I remember getting that Chardonnay poured into my glass, and I swirled it and sniffed it, and I think it came out of my mouth before I realized what I was saying. I said, oh my God, this is like a wet bandage on a wound. I mean, and so Dude, that's kind of fun, and you can have that kind of fun, you know, and if you put some wines in there that may not be ones that you think people are really going to like and enjoy, but then the other thing you'll discover, and this is another, who likes Trader Joe's? Trader Joe's, $2 chuck, right? So I think it's about $3 or something. Well, for a lot, when you do a blind tasting, throw in a $2 chuck or an inexpensive wine like that. See how people like it. And you'll be shocked because sometimes they'll pick that over the $25 bottle. And so, you know, so you can have a lot of fun. The double blind is when you have the bottles wrapped in a bag. They're all different varietals and vintages. And this is, you know, this also can be a lot of fun too, because some people will think, oh, I know that it's I know what a Merlot tastes like, and they're tasting this, and they're not even close. And then we also use the world often. You'll see Old World or New World. Obviously, the Americas are New World, and Europe is the Old World wines. So going back to when we talked earlier about some of the history of winemaking in those regions, it goes back so many years. So these are some fun ideas. So now we're going to pop over to Francis Ford Coppola. Check it out. This is, Francis owns 2 Tuckers. Now those of you that are fans of Gilmore Carneys, you know that our Tucker sits right out in front in our exhibit that'll be here till July, Women Who Motor. And the interior was designed by a woman. It's the lowest mileage Tucker in the world, 61 miles. But Francis has, this Tucker sits on a turntable, and he has a huge winery, and it's like a resort. See these people standing up here? This is all, that's the desk from The Godfather, the movie The Godfather. All they're here is all display cases with all kinds of movie memorabilia. He has all his movie, it's like a museum, it's a winery, there's 2 restaurants, there's 2 bars, they have full liquor service. In addition to all of Francis's wines, you can walk in and see the processing area. And then these are all Francis's wines, as well as he has a whole line of food products too that he sells. So once again, he took a big fortune and is making a bigger fortune in the wine business. And here's a few more, here's an overhead shot. But before we get to that, of course I had to put this up here. Newer than an A-ball, revolutionary Tucker. See, the revolutionary rear-end motor. And those of you that know, we have 4 dealerships here at the Gilmore Car Museum, built just like they were when they opened. And we're getting our 5th dealership, a mid-century modern muscle car dealership that'll sit right next to the Ford dealership. We break ground this spring on that. But the first dealership you see, if you walk all the way through here, is the Franklin. And that motor, that revolutionary rear-end motor, that air-cooled helicopter engine that sits in the back of the Tucker was a Franklin. So you can learn more about that here too. This is what you would be looking at from up above, from those folks that are looking down. And the Tucker is on revolving. It turns around. And at Christmas time, Francis puts the Christmas tree on top. So this is part of the memorabilia exhibit, and the movie Tucker is playing with Jeff Bridges. And you'll see all kinds, all of this. I had pictures of everything, but I didn't put everything in here. These are Francis's Oscars, and all of the other awards that he won. And this sits up to the left of the Godfather desk up above, with a listing of all the things. So it's really, you go to this winery, you not only taste wine. Did I say there's 2 restaurants, too? Did I say there's a pool, 2 pools, an adult pool and a kid's pool? Did I say there's cabines? Okay, here's more movie memorabilia. This was Dracula. These are the cabines outside. So Francis gets almost is more than some of our hotels in Sonoma County get, just to have that for an afternoon as a changing room with a shower in it by the pools. Yeah, there's flags out there normally during, this was last month, so nobody's swimming last month. But there's flags out there throughout the year. It's very festive. This whole walkway area here goes back to the production area back here. And then the next picture you'll see, this is their public space for banquets. This is the replica of the Coppola from The Godfather. And these are the pools that, this is the adult pool, that's the children's pool. And people will come and just rent the cabine and rent